Hello, friends, and welcome to episode number 88 of Nostalgia Talk. I'm James, and joining me today is Chris Hayes.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Good to have you here. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, Chris is an actor and puppeteer who is mostly known as a puppeteer. He's done work on Sesame Street as the original character Elijah, who's a more recent addition to the show, and also has recently taken on the iconic classic role as Hoots the Owl, as well as other background characters in specials and various episodes, and has also appeared on screen in shows such as Vampire Diaries and Teen Wolf. So, Chris,
Right
welcome.
on.
Yeah, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I don't always do podcasts, but I'm like, let's do it. So it's great to. I'm in podcast mode, so this is great.
That's awesome. So, as I said in the intro, you're an actor and puppeteer. You've done screen work as well. How did you become interested in acting in general?
Oh, that's a great question. I've acted since I was very small. I would say like second grade, something like that. I started doing theater camps. So I'll do theater camps every summer, and I was awful, but I learned to act, improv, and dance and those things. And this kind of kept me out of trouble. And so the older I get, no matter what I was
It
into,
gets you out of trouble.
yeah, absolutely,
I love that.
absolutely. It was like no matter how old I got, like it would always serve as something I knew I could do and something I knew I was good at and liked.
That's great. So, did you ever do school plays? I've talked to a lot of screen actors. Like, nobody believes me when I tell them this, but I talked to one of the kids from Home Alone, and
Okay, cool.
like that opening scene in the first movie where everybody's like, "Where is everything?" Her name is Santa Moses. She had the line, "This house is so crawling with people, I can't believe it." Like she was the one who was just kind of like overwhelmed by everything.
That's
And
perfect.
when I talk to actors who have done puppeteering, voice acting, or screen acting, or all of them in general, I often ask if they've ever done school plays. Is that ever something you did?
Oh, absolutely. Elementary school, I did tons of school plays. Um, my music teacher was one of the music teachers for my theater camp. So
Oh, that's lucky.
every yeah, so every summer I would know. I was like, oh, we're gonna do this, so I'm gonna be ready. So I would know. I know the songs already. So yeah, all the way through elementary school, middle school, and high school, I did, and college too. I've done plays and musicals.
That's amazing. So, how did you get interested in puppetry?
I've always been into puppets. I used to come down to Atlanta and in the 90s to visit my folks. And we would go up to the Center for Puppetry Arts, and I saw puppet shows for the first time there. And that's one of the big places where Jim Henson helped to cut the ropes on the place. It was one of the big places for puppetry in the world. And I was just so enamored with the idea of puppeteering as a art form and as a job. Is that always kind of remained in my back of my head as something that I like to do. And so when I got older, I started thinking about how to jumpstart a career and what to do and how do I jump right into this performing thing. Do I need to start doing music? Do I need to do theater? And there were a number of puppet theaters around my college. One was Madcap Puppets, where I ended up going in Cincinnati, and I was with them for like 2-3 years, just doing their shows. And it was like kind of definitely destiny fulfilling to kind of get a chance to do what you've always like thought about as a little kid, as a grown up adult, and someone give you a little bit of money for it.
I never thought that there would be like puppet troops in Cincinnati.
Oh yeah, there are multiple. There's the Frisch Marionettes are out of Cincinnati. Madcap Puppets are there. Megan
Because I'm
Pisces.
of course thinking
Yeah.
about the Muppet stuff that happens in like L.A. and New York, and you
Mm-hmm.
said Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta. So I felt like those were kind of like big hubs for
Uh-huh.
puppetry, especially because of Jim Henson's involvement with them, because
Yeah, yeah.
he really did change the way that puppetry works.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing about Madcap is Jerry Handorf worked at the Muppet Workshop. So I
Oh.
mean, there's still a connection between Madcap and Sesame and Henson. So
Hmm.
even still.
Talking about connection with Sesame Street, how did you get involved?
In 2014, I applied to do a workshop. I wanted to apply in oh 06, oh 05. There was one earlier and just did not have my stuff together. And I'm glad I didn't have my stuff together because I didn't understand anything about how it works with the monitors and learning that. It would have been a major catastrophe if I'd have went early, but maybe it would have helped me in the future. But yeah, 2014, I applied to do their puppeteer workshop and flew myself down to New York on my birthday and hit it hard for like a whole weekend learning Muppet style. And I had been sending Sesame unsolicited resumes and videos for years, ever since I got out of college. I was just like, send them a resume, see if they need me. And this was the first time I heard back and got an opportunity. So that was 2014, and I started working on the show in 2015. So a whole year later after doing that one workshop.
Do you remember the first time you ever performed on the show, like what you were doing?
Oh yeah. Background Muppets, like kind of what we always do, background Muppets and assisting, which is kind of the bread and butter for people who start on the show. It was a cool environment. The set is amazing.
I bet. Yeah.
2D. Yeah, it's not 2D. It's 3D. It's popping out. There's stuff on the shelves. There's always something to explore. I go there and walk around. Even every season I'm on there, I'm just like, oh yeah, look at that. And I've been there tons of times, and I'd never ceases to amaze me what they do, art department wise and set deck wise. It's great. Yeah, that's what I was doing. I was doing background Muppets and assisting that first day, and it flew by.
And then eventually, as time went on and you were doing background Muppets and all that, you got the classic Hoots the Owl.
Yeah, that was 2019. I got a random audition for it. Went down to New York to audition. Was pretty sure I didn't get it. I was like, there's no way. And then months later, I think I auditioned in January and then heard back in February. I was like, what? And it came out of nowhere. I didn't know why my phone was ringing. I just moved on, like, all right, well, we tried.
So it's just like so it was just like, why? So like when you saw that there was an audition, were you like, why are they auditioning Hoots? Because like it had been years since Kevin had left the show, and like really the only big star that Kevin really did was Elmo. And I mean, without Elmo, where would that show be now? And of course, like when Kevin started, he had a lot of really hip characters like Hoots and Ferlinghetti, Don and Zeddy, Kingston Livingston. And if I were to talk about any of these characters to any of my friends, they'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? But it's really cool that they decided to bring back Hoots, and that was for like the 50th anniversary stuff. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, they had a bunch of things lined up for the 50th. With NPR, with Jazz and Lincoln Center, and then the special, and they were like, we're gonna bring back Hoots, which I'm so glad he did.
In addition to many other characters,
we tons of characters in that first shoot, but I'm just like, I'm glad they did. So give me another opportunity to get in there and work and kind of show them what I can do, which is fantastic.
Did that happen for a lot of characters for the 50th anniversary special? Because like Eric Jacobson was doing Harvey Knee Slapper, and he does a lot of Frank's characters. Peter Linz doing Captain Vegetable. Matt Vogel taking on Sherlock Hemlock, Biff, Forgetful Jones. Ryan Dillon doing Don Music and Lefty the Salesman. So for a lot of those characters, do you know if there were auditions for them?
I'm not sure. I only heard about that one because Hoots was involved in so much. Like he was just doing a lot that 50th anniversary that I think they needed to reach out for that. But I'm not entirely sure about the other characters or how they went about picking who's who. Maybe Muppet Captain would have picked it. Matt, maybe he would have cast. Maybe he kind of knows what everyone can do. But yeah, I mean, there was tons of characters, and everyone knew they grabbed those characters and just brought them back to life like nothing passed. I was just as surprised as you guys are. When I go out to the set, I'm like, oh, you see it, you look on the rack and you're like, what? So,
And what's nice is that it wasn't just a one-time thing. A lot of these characters are still appearing on the show now, not as much as others, but some kids have no idea what the heck they even are, which is hilarious.
That's the fun part, because you have your main characters that you see all the time, and then with other characters you can put them away, bring them back out, and it's kind of a fun, because I mean, between the time when Kevin did Hoots and I did Hoots, it was 10 years. Believe it or not, it's kind of cool to see that, like, that in 10 years, kids totally phase out of watching the show. Most of them, obviously, there are folks who still enjoy to watch the puppetry and they have kids and stuff that come into watching it. But like 10 years is a pretty big gap. And then you bring a character back and you're like, woo, he's revitalized, which is kind of nice. And it's nice on a new performer that I try to stay as close to Kevin as I can, but obviously I'm still working to get there. And it's nice to have a big gap of time to kind of be like, you can bring something to it.
That's great. So what was it like to work on the 50th anniversary special? Because like I remember watching that brand new, like with my family, because like my parents were kids when Sesame Street was brand new. I started watching Sesame Street when I was brand new. Didn't really get into the older stuff until a little bit later in my life. And my parents would be like, oh, I remember that. And it really did feel, of course they would. It really did feel like super classic. Like it felt more like it was more broken down than it is now up into segments. But yeah, what was that like for you to be a part of this?
It was really cool. It happened pretty quick. We started shooting a bunch of segments in LA, and they were out there already before doing stuff in LA. So I did the really hard stuff in LA just with Hoots. And then by the time I got back to New York, that's when we did the lion's share of the rest of the stuff with the storyline with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Nora Jones and all these stars. And that was it was kind of we're all fans of the show. Everyone there they're really in love with the characters and a lot of the history of the show, which is, I love to see that people who are involved and they like what they do. And it was really amazing to watch all of these celebrities come through and jump right in. And Put Down the Ducky had all these celebrities singing a song, and that was just wild to think that they're all in that song that I just recorded. I think we did it in like a hotel room or something one night, just like cleaning it up. Yeah, to get a scratch track and everything, just clean it up as best as we can. It's very cool to like see how it came together and see what a big deal it was. And my family sat and watched it all together, and we don't usually watch anything I do. They're like, it's okay. But that was one time we all came there and like, well, let's watch it. We're all here. So me and my family and the in-laws were in town, so it was great.
Oh, that's sweet. I love that. I don't know if you talking about celebrities loving all of these classic characters. Did you see the videos that they put out during the 50th anniversary where celebrities were talking about their favorite Sesame Street moments?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it makes me think of the one with what's his name, Paul Scheer, where he's saying my favorite Sesame Street moment is anything with this character, and he's looking at the camera like none of these kids are gonna know what character I'm talking about, and he's like, my favorite character was Roosevelt Franklin. I loved Roosevelt Franklin when I was a kid. None of my kids even know who that is. Where's Roosevelt Franklin now? And then he passes by like, hey Paul. Paul's like, holy shit, never saw that coming.
That was good.
So when you did the 50th anniversary special, in addition to bringing back all of these classic Muppets like Don Music, Roosevelt Franklin, Sherlock Hemlock, Harvey Kneeslapper, it also brought back all of the, well, maybe not all, but most of the classic human cast, such as Gordon, Susan, Bob, Maria, Luis. And I think it was the last Sesame Street thing that Bob and Emilio and also Carol Spinney
I guess so.
did, because Carol Spinney made a little cameo in the back. Did you get to know any of those guys?
I haven't had a ton of face-to-face time with the human actors.
Okay.
I've worked with Gordon. I love Mr. Roscoe, is amazing. He's great. And so I got a chance to work with him a couple times. But the other folks I had not, this is my first time seeing them. And I've been on the show before, obviously, but like that was just something to see all those people in one place. Like, because obviously I grew up with them as well, and it's just you almost don't feel like they're real. You're like, well, they're puppets too, right? Because it's just like I would say their characters are so big. He's got these like legendary actors and characters that they don't feel like they exist in our world. But
it's funny because when I was a
cool
kid watching Sesame Street and seeing the humans interact with the puppets, I knew the puppets weren't human because nothing, no human's mouth operates like a hinge.
Right.
So yeah, there was no real secret for me. I knew that that was not a real
Oh,
human.
good.
Same with animation. It's funny. My last guest, Tanya Gunati, she's an actress from Disney Channel.
That's great.
She's done voice acting as well. And she said that when she decided that that's what she wanted to do, was the first time she realized that human actors were doing the voices for these cartoon characters. And I'm like, what do you think? That somebody just draws it and it's AI generated?
Hey, you never know. I know it's so interesting to think of the things that when we're little, trying to figure out how they exist and what makes them work. And then if in tandem with, are you paid for that? Is that someone's job, or do they have to have a job? And and I'm sure, but in 10 years that'll change. It's like, well, actually now, no, you're not paid for that. Or now, yeah, you are paid for that. And there's being a kid is awesome sometimes. It's that curiosity of figuring out the science behind a lot of things.
And again, I say, welcome to Nostalgia Talk.
Right on.
So as I mentioned, talking about the 50th anniversary special, it was one of the last things that Carol Spinney ever did, but he was not doing his characters. I think by the time you joined Sesame Street, he still was. Did you get to know him at all?
I met him a couple times, which was really fun and really nice, him and Debbie. And I didn't have a ton of interactions with them. I used to write him as when I was a younger adult. So like when I was in college and high school, I would write him like, "Hey, I'm trying to be a puppeteer," and he would write back, which is so fantastic.
Wow.
I have his framed. I have a framed letter on the wall that I didn't frame it until after I got to Sesame Street, and so I have a feather to go with it now. Incredible puppeteer, incredible character. It's just like, yeah, this is amazing. I didn't get a chance to know him quite as well, but I work with a lot of people who work with him constantly, and they have nothing to say but like how legendary he is.
I never met Carol, but I did get to know, and I never met these people either, but I did get to know Emilio and Bob before they passed away. Emilio was one of the most genuine people in the world. He always was interested in what I was doing. I remember when Ed Asner passed away. I met Ed Asner at a fan convention in Los Angeles, and
cool.
I was telling somebody this. I think I tickled his funny bone, by which I mean, like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Up with him in it.
Oh yeah.
So when it was my turn to talk to him, it was a Disney convention, and the director and producer of Up were right there, just kind of saying hello to him as all the fans kept coming over. And then it's my turn. They're still there. I went up to him and I said, "Hi there, my name is James," imitating Doug from Up.
Okay.
And he looked at me like I was deranged, and he's like, "Get the hell to the back of the line, kid."
That's funny.
So as I'm talking to him a little bit more, I got a picture. And he looked at me, and then he looked at my parents, and he said to my parents, "You're doing a good job with him."
Oh, that's great.
So I posted that online when Ed passed away, and Emilio actually commented on it. And he said,
wow.
"I worked with Ed on Lou Grant. He was a real character of a guy." And Bob and I were Facebook friends. I never talked to him a lot, but occasionally I would. And every time he would make a post like "Thank you for being a fan" and stuff like that. It was just like I was talking to David Newell, who played Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers, and he said that Mr. Rogers, the character, is Mr. Rogers, the human, and that's what I feel about Bob.
A lot of those guys and actors on the show are like that, which is fantastic. Like they're just genuinely super nice people, and it's like you love to be around them, like Suki and Chris. My God, like I can sit around
Love
Chris
those guys.
Yeah, it's like they're Alan. Oh my God, yeah, it's like you remember like, okay, we got to work, because you can just sit there and just sit next to them and listen to them talk and shoot the breeze all day, and it's like it's just great that that's who kids are growing up watching, because I'll be glad and happy to watch those guys interact with Muppets, because they're just fantastic people.
It is a little bit strange though that children's role models are basically TV characters.
Yeah, I mean that was the great experiment to see if it could educate, but TV has been so much more here in this country that kind of does everything.
Yeah, what do we need daycare for?
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, that's, TV and film has a big role here. So we got to be okay with that. But I'm glad, I'm glad there's shows that actually take that to heart and they know like your kids are going to be looking at these people. So let's do a good job.
That's great. So earlier you were talking about doing Jazz at Lincoln Center as Hoots, and I actually remember watching the live stream of that.
Oh, cool.
For one thing, not only to celebrate Sesame Street, but I wanted to see this new performer do Hoots finally.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. What was that like?
Oh, it was really incredible. I'm a big fan of jazz, so I
same
like watching like Sherman Irby. I'm like Sherman Irby. I'd at some point in time we got a different drummer, and they were like, "Oh yeah, the drummer's gonna come in," and then I saw Jason Marsalis walking. I was like, "Is that Jason Marsalis?" And they were like, "No. I don't think that's him." I was like, "That's Jason Marsalis." And I knew it was him because I had in college, the Marcus Roberts Trio had come to my college and performed this incredible jazz set at a mandatory concert. I was like, there's convocations that you go to, and after the convocation was over, me and a couple of my buddies, we had a band, and we were like, let's go backstage and just hang out. And that's what we did. We went backstage and just hung out for like an hour, and I just got a chance to talk to Jason Marsalis. And so when I saw him come in, I was like, holy crap, he's our drummer. And so I was like, you don't remember, 2003, you came to Kentucky. He's like, oh my God. And so
did he remember you then?
No, he didn't. He was like, that was so long ago. I was like, what? But he did remember. I saw him later after that. I would see him and we'd be walking around in Manhattan. I was like, Jason, like, hey, Chris. So this is so cool. And of course, Winton is incredible. But playing in front of those guys, we're amazed at all of them for what they can do, and they're amazed at us for what we do. And we're like, really? And they're like, really? So it's such a cool mutual love in there. I wish we could do that every year because it's just so fun. It is really hard to do live. But I have really big puppets. Hoots is very heavy. Elijah's Elijah's okay. He's pretty big. But they're heavy, and so when you watch that whole concert, there's no cuts. You're jumping, the cameras are jumping around, but we're up the entire time. We're playing in front of an audience, and it is some willpower and and there's some shaking arms. We're singing live, we're puppeteering live, and we're playing the monitors, and it is insane to watch it back to see what we did.
Because I remember tweeting you the morning after that show, and I was like, I watched you live. I loved watching you do Hoots, and I remember you had responded, I got some pretty big shoes to fill. Did you like, and you not only are you doing this character, you've previously filmed you doing him for the 50th anniversary special, and now it's the first time the world is basically seeing it, and it's in front of a live audience. Like, how nervous were you doing that?
Honestly, not super nervous.
Okay.
I feel, and when I'm from a live crowd, I'm like, I'm Gucci, I'm good. I get way more nervous recording the stuff.
It's funny. You're the second person that has ever used the word Gucci as a slang for good. Like, you're the second person I know. One of my friends said that not too long ago. I'm like, what the hell does Gucci have to do with anything?
I'm Gucci.
All right.
But I get it just flowed out. But I feel like if I'm in front of a live audience, I'm fine. I'm fine. And it was really cool to be with the other Muppeteers or Muppet performers, Muppeteers, but other Muppet performers and see and this watcher like, wow, man. I was like, thanks. It's a live audience. That's why I'm like, if it was cameras, I started getting my head and like I'm thinking about, am I gonna do this right? Because I don't want to waste time. But like something about a theater audience, by the time I got to doing Hoots in front of at Lincoln Center, I had been on stage professionally since like 06, 07. So it's like, it's not even the biggest crowd I was in front of, which is grabbing, doing outdoor improv sets in front of, 1,500, 2,000 people. So like, it felt good nature. It felt really good.
And one of the best parts of that live show, besides you, of course, doing Hoots, One of my very favorite Sesame Street song ever, and I feel like a lot of people have agreed with me on this, is "I Don't Want to Live on the Moon."
Oh yeah.
Gotta love Peter doing that one
Oh,
live
it's
at
incredible.
that live show the way that he did. Like, oh,
I I'm not a fan of heights. I
okay.
assisted on that I assisted on that number, and we wore the all black ninja hoods. And the turnaround is so fast that we got to get from down on the stage all the way up in the rafters to do that, and then the thing comes up, and I could not even think about like my fear of being up high, because it was just when that window would come up and you would see everyone, you see the entire audience, and almost everyone would be like, oh, it was like so magical. And I was like, I can't even see what they're saying, but like them watching us like that, it's just like every night I'm like, oh, this is so amazing.
Hmm.
And it was just the greatest feeling to in the act that way. You're like,
And that song is just like in front of a live audience, it's done in such a very, very, very well done way.
oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. The rewrites on them, they they split all the numbers up and composed just did new arrangements for everything. And it was cool to see them divvy up all the work and then hand out stuff like, here's what I got, here's what I got. And it's just like amazing how they arranged these things.
That's great. So eventually you got an original character, Elijah. And for anybody who doesn't know which one Elijah is, unless you remember an interview that I did last year with Bradley, um, yeah, I interviewed Bradley last year.
Oh, he's great.
Um,
That guy.
yeah, he's a very, very good friend. And for any of the listeners who don't know who Elijah is, so Bradley does this little boy character, Wes, and Elijah is Wes's father, who's a meteorologist. We've seen a lot of YouTube content with those characters. How did you get the role of Elijah? Because Bradley talked to me a little bit about the audition, and he said that he actually auditioned for both characters.
Yeah, we both did. We
Okay.
auditioned with both characters with a lot of good puppeteers.
Well, that's
It
hilarious
happened.
because Bradley and I are the same age.
Oh wow, yeah, he is something. At some point in time, I remember he couldn't do a shoot, or we had to move a shoot because he was graduating. I was like, oh my god! I was like, how old are you? He's so good. He is so good. He's hilarious. Um, yeah, and we can when we're on set together, it's just like, oh, these two. I'm like, sorry, we're gonna like keep us in line because we're gonna mess around the entire time. But it was all over Zoom. The whole thing was over Zoom. It it we read for both characters, and they would they kept moving us room to room, and all these Zoom rooms, and so you never knew who you're gonna pop up with, like boop boop, and so like, oh hey, I know you, and then in one thing with me and Bradley popped up, and we just like we we talked about the sides and whatnot, and we went back and we did it a couple of times, and then we were like man, that was good. Yeah, this is so dope. And we were talking. They had like a report, and then I was like, all right, well, see ya. We didn't know, and then to know that we got the role, we were like, what? And it was during like lockdown, so we had to when we finally figured out we got it, we spent about a week in I was in hibernation, a week in solitude in a hotel. They flew us into New York. We stayed in a hotel for about a week, and then we would come and test, go back into the hotel, wait till the test come out. Then we would go shoot on like a Friday. Um, so that whole thing of like finally getting there, like, whoa, you're here. It was an amazing experience, and it's documented. There's a documentary about the whole thing.
Is that the one on ABC?
I think so. Yeah.
Because I remember when that came out, a couple of my friends' parents, or actually my friends, were texting me. My mom said that there's this Sesame Street documentary that's going to be on TV tomorrow night. I don't know if you know about it. And I was like, you do know who you're talking to, right?
Like, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
don't. I've not seen it in a while.
well, there's another documentary that came out around that same time, Street Gang. Did you see
Right. Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
It's the best one they've ever done,
Oh,
actually.
it's so good. We
Yeah,
watched
like yeah.
it. We watched it as a cast
Hmm.
during I think this was during COVID too, right? Yeah, it was crazy. We had like a like a Zoom movie night. It was really cool. Like the guys who made the documentary like talked to us for a while, and we're all on like Zoom. They were all like texting. And then we got to see the whole documentary as a whole cast and crew, which was really cool. It came out very good. I've
I
watched it several
was
times. Like,
Yeah, I was working at the time I work in the film business. I was working at a rental facility for film equipment
oh,
at the
cool.
time. And I remember sometime after, one of our guys texted me a photo of it. And it's like, look what's on Crave. I was like, remember I mentioned to you best Sesame Street documentary that I've ever seen? That's the one. And he's like, well, we're watching it now. I'm like, enjoy. Don't miss a minute of it.
You'll love it. I read the book too. And that was the
Same.
first time I've never flown through a book like that fast. Usually I'm like, oh, I got a couple, I'm halfway through, put it down, I'll go do some other stuff.
As most people are these days when it comes to reading.
Yeah. It's just like there's
more of it
thick
lately.
books. I got so many books on my table here. I'm just like, I'll get to them. But I chewed that thing up. It was great.
With getting the role of Elijah and Bradley getting the role of Wes, he told me that when he had auditioned, you know, like he waited a bit for it. Like I at the time when you told me that story, I at the time had just put my name in to audition for a series as a voice actor.
Oh, good.
And so like I know how it is. You just have to wait and see what happens. So he told me that he got this email from Sesame Street that started off with, "Thank you for your interest in auditioning for this character." And he's like, "Oh crap, I didn't get it."
Yeah.
And it says, "Guess what? You have the part." And he's like, "Yes."
So like, ah.
Was that what it was like for you? You just got it and it was like, "Oh God, I didn't get the part."
I assume I don't get anything. I assume. I mean, I've been acting. It's almost been 20 years. Professionally, and I do so many auditions. I had 2 commercial auditions this week, a couple of like TV shows every now and then, whatever my agent sends my way. And for the most part, you don't hear whether you didn't get it or if you got it until it's on TV. You're like, oh, I didn't get that. It's on TV.
It's funny. I put my name in once for a commercial, and then the strikes. I live in Canada, but still,
okay,
you know,
yeah.
But a lot of the productions here have, you know, those unions that were on strike involved. So I was like, all right, I'll just wait until stuff picks up. And then I went to the place that I was that I put my name in for the commercial for, and they were filming it.
They're like, oh, I guess I'm not in. I'm not in that one. All right,
that's an interesting way to find out that you didn't get the job.
Yeah. That's how it happens. It's like you just don't, you know. So a part of that is just the idea of do the best you can, and then move on. I used to like literally ball up. I have my sides. I'm like, throw them out, or like, oh,
Screw
fire.
this.
And like, it's fine, it's done, never again. So I auditioned for it, and some stuff you really like. I had some auditions. I was like, I really like this, and you just can't get attached to it until you're in or out. And so I read for it. I felt really good about it, but I tried not to think too much about it. Especially because in my brain, I started going like, okay, well, you do this and this and that and the other. And I was like, whatever they need, they'll get the people who they want and the people who they like. If I don't get it, I'm not supposed to have it. And it's worked out that way every time. Like anytime I didn't get anything, another door opened. I was like, oh, okay, I couldn't have done this thing I'm doing now if I got what I thought I wanted. So I try not to get too attached. But I got that email, and I was super excited when I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, babe, I got it. Okay, this is great. So honestly, if you treat it like that, if you treat everything as like, all right, I probably didn't get it, no big deal. Not mine. You're surprised every time, no matter how long you do. Like, oh my God. So I was super excited.
Since we've been introduced to Elijah and Wes, we've seen a lot that goes on in their own lives in a lot of the YouTube skits. Of course, with Elijah's job as a meteorologist, which is such a cool job, I have to say.
It's really cool.
Especially to give that character, to give to any character, really. So, I mean, there was one skit where Grover was a meteorologist, but his weather predictions sucked every time. It's like, oh, Did I say it was going to rain today? I meant it was going to be sunny. Oh, did I say it was going to be sunny? I meant it was going to snow. Did I say it was going to snow? I meant it was going to rain, because the weather coming down on him. And of course, we got to see Wes take an interest in what his father does.
Yeah.
Of course, the best one, and Bradley agreed with me about this, as did Fran Brill when I interviewed her, by the way.
What?
True story.
What?
The skit where Elijah takes Wes to get his haircut, and
she said she liked the barber shop.
She loved it.
What?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Right on. Mm-hmm. No, it's good. I'm like, oh yeah, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. Well, right on, man. All right, cool.
Yeah, Fran Brill says hello.
I'm gonna talk about this in therapy. I'm doing good. All right. All right.
One of the OG Muppet performers likes my work.
Great.
But talking about OG Sesame Street people like Fran Brill, that also featured Roscoe as Gordon. And I remember talking to Bradley about that. And he said that it was in a Zoom chat that you guys were like rehearsing for it. And he had no idea Roscoe was going to be there. And it's like, holy shit.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. Not only was Roscoe was in there. Roscoe's in there. I'm doing Elijah. Bradley is doing Wes. Jamaica Collins is doing a character. Brandon's doing a character. Like there's almost an all black cast for the barbershop.
And just for any of the listeners who don't know what we're talking about, they've brought a lot of new Muppets of color and new Muppet performers of color to do a lot of these characters, and we see a lot more of them in the newer seasons.
So it's so crazy. Just like looking and seeing almost that entire cast were brand new black performers of color, and Spencer Lott, who we love also.
Another previous guest.
I love Spencer Lott. He's in the cookout. That's my homie. But yeah, it was really cool that video directed by Noel McNeil. And I think his grandparents are on the wall in the barbershop, which is very cool.
Oh yeah, I think I did know that from him.
Yeah, I think it's either his grandparents or great grandparents. I can't remember which one. They're on the wall. Hoots is spray painted on the wall out on the mural out front. Right. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. And yeah, it was so much went into that. It was really nice to do that. That was one of my favorite things that we've ever done. And I love everything. Every time they bring me in, I'm like, I'm for it. I'm happy to do this character. But that was so cool, that barbershop thing. And I think about it all the time. And they really that came out of them calling us up, me and Bradley. And we sat down with a couple of the writers, and we just talked through every experience we had growing up and stuff that I do with my kids. I got 2 kids. Bradley is very young, so he was a kid not too long ago. So we just kind of talked through our experiences, and they took those and ran with them. And it came out fantastic. I'm super proud of those guys. And it was nominated for an Emmy, right? I think it was nominated for an Emmy. Well, maybe not the barbershop. Maybe I'm thinking of the other one. I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't know.
Either way, something that you did with Elijah
it should have.
Emmy. Yeah.
So the work has been real good, and they're really good. I mean, I can't talk enough about them. They're great. They do good stuff, and they research and work hard. I come in and flap and act, but they put in a lot of groundwork.
So with Sesame Street, you've done, of course, 50th anniversary special, and also the Christmas special, Once Upon a Sesame Street Christmas, both which were star-studded. And of course, Sesame Street is known for that, having a lot of celebrities come on their show. Do you have any celebrity stories that you'd like to share?
Man, do I? I have flashes of things I remember. I remember during the 50th, kind of hanging around with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He's a really cool dude. He brought his kids to set, which is fun. His kid liked Hoots' sax, so I was like, this is cool. Maggie Rogers came to set.
I love Maggie Rogers. Cool. She was actually just in well, not here, but I live in The part of Canada I live in is called the Maritime. So there's Nova Scotia, which is where I am, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and Prince Edward Island. Maggie Rogers was just in Prince Edward Island last
Okay,
summer.
yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I know who that is. She did a song on Sesame Street that a couple of my buddies were in. So.
Yeah, she's awesome. Her crew she brought was awesome. We was really lucky with the people who they bring in. They've been all very nice and very cool and down to earth. And you're like watching them, you're like, oh, this is awesome. I don't. I'm sure it'll come back to me. I don't have any celebrity stories that I'm like, that was insane from Sesame.
I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt's son liking Hoots' saxophone is really something.
That was really cool because you just, you work for so long all day and you're like, oh, these kids are kids. That was great. The sheer amount of people who they brought around are just amazing. And they do a really good work at researching and figuring out like, who do you want to bring in for what? So.
And Joseph Gordon-Levitt was such a good host of the 50th anniversary special. Like you could tell that he was really, really happy to be here. And then when Sesame Street did the Kennedy Center, I don't know if you saw that, but he was one of the performers that was introducing them. And I remember watching that one with my family as well. And he looks at, I think it was Cookie Monster, and he's like, I used to love Sesame Street when I was a kid, and now my two boys are about the same age that I was. And I remember my mom seeing that, like with a big smile on her face. She's like, wow, he must have really, really loved the show.
Yeah, he was great. That's I'm always amazed and thankful for the people who are watching the show. I mean, I'm not an owner or anything, but I think it's really cool when people grab onto things and pass it down to generations. That's cool.
So moving on from Sesame Street, as I mentioned at the start, you've done a lot of screen acting, and you were in shows like Vampire Diaries and Teen Wolf, which are not really for kids, of course. Like it's different.
Oh, I've got a ton of non-kid friendly stuff that.
It's very different than an owl who plays the saxophone, for sure. So what was that like to appear on classic shows like that?
Doing face acting is totally different ball game. It's nice. I like it. I like doing it a lot, and I like having lines. Those were fun. I remember one of them. I got there like 5 o'clock, and we weren't gonna shoot until like midnight, and so I'm like, oh my god, so my call time was so early, and then just waiting around, and then like you start getting like, oh, I'm ready to get out there, and then you finally go out there and shoot, and you're like, whoo, I'm on a high, and then I'm eating, and just back in your trailer, you're like, oh man, that was great. And it's only for like these tiny little lines, but still it's just something about shooting TVs is really fun, which is why I'm glad to do with puppets too, but I really like doing the people acting stuff. Is very, very cool on film and television. It's been a good run. I'm hoping to do more of it. I'm always auditioning and such. It's we're coming back from the strike and such, so everything's building back up.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't understand, because like I get asked any projects happening anytime soon. I'm thinking to myself, that's usually not something that film workers engage conversation in, because usually they can't discuss it.
Right, yeah.
And usually my answer is, well, we're coming back from the strike. It may have only been 6 months, and some people are like, I thought the strike was over. It takes more than just a strike being over for things to get back to normal. There's so much that goes into it.
And all this, it was a long time too. So all the stuff that the meetings that were happening get cooled down, and so people move on because they got to figure out other stuff. And so when it comes back, they're like, oh, now we're going back. So yeah, it's taking a little bit. And
it's taking a little bit for a lot of people. Yeah.
Right. And then the things that we're watching now are from like a year ago. And so it's crazy to think that we'll fill the hole somewhere. We're like, oh, there it is. That's the hole. But there's so much stuff now. So maybe who knows what'll come. So it'll be good. But yeah, the acting, I mean, it's fun, it's great. It's great. I like being in front of audiences. I like doing comedies, and I end up doing a lot of dramas and such. I didn't think I was that intense, but maybe I am. There's always they always send me these brooding dramas, like, okay.
Whatever built, yeah.
Right, yeah, no, for real. Yeah, I'm still getting residuals from Vampire Diaries. So I'm like, okay, cool.
Well, a lot of my friends probably would kill me if I didn't ask this about Teen Wolf. Did you get to meet Dylan O'Brien? I have friends who
Yes.
love
Yes.
Teen Wolf.
Yes, I did. Um, we were in the tent because we did. I forget the other. Oh my god, my brain is blanking on all the characters now and the actors. Um, he was. They had us all jammed to a tent. It was so cold. We're shooting the lacrosse scene, and so extras they had to stay out there in the stands. They're cheering and whatnot. But the actors, we were in our trailers and like, we got to move you. We got to shoot now because we know we only got so much time to shoot all these lacrosse scenes. And so yeah, we were jammed into a tent sharing a heater for like I don't know, probably like 30, 40 minutes. So yeah, I got to interact with them a little bit. I couldn't tell you any, it was so long ago. That was in like 09, 2010, something like that. 2010. When was that? I can kind of remember it if I think back. It was a while ago, but
Because I remember
yeah,
when Teen Wolf was like really, really popular. I didn't know what it was until I think it was the Maze Runner, that movie that Dylan O'Brien was in,
yeah.
came out. And I went to it without reading the book, so I was very unprepared
He's like,
for it.
what is happening?
Well, it's funny because at the time in my English class that year, we were actually in book clubs, like separated.
Okay,
And one of the groups read The Maze Runner.
like, we know
And
exactly
then
what
like
this is.
3 months later, the movie comes out.
That's amazing. Yeah, he was very cool. I remember. Yeah, I'm about to say I remember him. I can see the little white tent that they set up with the heater that barely kept us warm, and we were all just joking around and laughing until they put us onto the field to do the stuff.
I had a
But
very similar experience like that. Before I started film school, I was on a show called Mr. D, which was shot here in Halifax.
oh, cool.
I was an extra on that for like I think the last 2 episodes, and the last scene we did was a graduation scene, and so that was an all hands on deck moment. Like,
Right? Yeah, I
called, like,
imagine.
yeah, like it was in a high school auditorium. There was like I don't remember how many of us there were. But if you watch that episode, I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but if you actually watch the last ever episode of Mr. D, you can actually see me in the audience.
Well, that's great.
I told a couple of my friends series finale of Mr. D, and I was getting texts from friends who knew about it and also didn't know about it. They're like, "Is that you?" I was like, "Yes, it is."
Yeah, the extra work is cool. I haven't done a ton of it in a while, but it's easy. If you want to get into film and television or just see how it works, I would suggest doing extra work. Don't expect a great experience as far as like being pampered and such, but if you're there to just kind of observe and like get on feel the heat of the camera and feel that kind of like
Literally
that
heat of the
tension of
camera. It was
rolling.
that day.
Yeah. That's
They were like,
extra
"Why'd
work
you
is
turn all
cool.
friendly?" And I'm like, "Because we were outside for 5 hours."
Right, exactly. We're outside. We ate at the very last.
So let's wrap it up with some fan questions. When I announce the show
Oh,
on Nostalgia Talk social media, links in the description. You guys know where to go. Facebook, Twitter, it's all there. I asked listeners if they had any questions that they would like to ask you, and I got some really good ones, both of which are about Hoots the Owl.
oh, cool. Okay.
So this first one,
What?
this first one I really, really like. It's from a fellow named Anthony Thompson,
Oh,
and
cool. Yeah, yeah.
he's
I
asking,
know Anthony Thompson.
okay, I see his name. I've never actually met him, but
I
I see.
saw him at a. I met him at a con,
All
one of
right.
the
Well, hi,
cons.
Anthony, if you're listening.
Yeah. Hey.
He's always, every time I read his comments on Nostalgia Talk social media, they're always just super nice comments. And like
Right.
when it comes to the fan questions, he sends really, really, really good questions. And this one from him, I really, really like. He wants to
Okay.
know. We've heard Kevin Clash say a few times that he's proud of Ryan's work as Elmo. I can attest to that. I've met Kevin before.
Mhm.
Have you heard from him, or has anybody talked to you about what he thinks of your work as Hoots?
Oh yeah, yeah. I talked to him. Oh, when was this? Maybe like last year. Yeah, it was first of all, I had never met him before. And he was like, I just want to thank you. You're doing a good job keeping that character alive. And so I was like, oh my God. Which is insane because I forgot that I was doing Hoots when I when he comes on screen. We had a Zoom meeting and was talking about puppets and stuff and showing did some puppets for him. And it was insane to watch this game. Like, oh yeah, I do that. Thank you. like, my mind went blank when
So
he
why
came on.
so why were you
Screen.
so why were you meeting Kevin?
It was an audition for something, and I caught on early. I always get on early, and he was just there conducting it. He was one of the people. He's like, you know Kevin, right? I was like, no. He's like, oh hey. We chit chatted for a couple before we started auditioning, and it was it was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, he's watching. So yeah, he says I'm doing a pretty good job keeping his character alive, which is a amazing compliment because I watched him do that character for years. Um, I forget what was the first season, like season 18 or something when Hoots
Definitely
first came
back in
on.
the 1980s, yeah.
Yeah, it was way back there. So I just watched so much of him do the character that even when you watch me do it, anytime you watch me, just know that I've gone back to watch him some more and try to figure out. So you see it change a little bit. Like, oh, he's watching Kevin do this. Oh, he's watching Kevin do that with the character. Because I really just I want that sweet spot because I grew up on Hoots and at Birdland, watching all those episodes of him and Savion. And I met Savion Glover. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But just watching those two in the Birdland episodes, that's what I'm doing. I'm studying Kevin do that character. I'm also bringing my own experiences to it, but I'm really trying to tune in with what he brings that character.
Well, that's actually a good lead in for the next fan question. This is from somebody named Sean Horace, and he's asking, what is your favorite Hoots the Owl moment, whether it be one of yours or one of the classic ones with Kevin?
Oh man. So my favorite thing was Jazz at Lincoln Center. That's just like I can't deny that was a fantastic experience. We still talk about that. All the puppeteers who were involved, every now and then we'll be shooting something and like Peter Lenz will look over, hey, remember Jazz Lincoln Center? Like, yes, I do. And it was best, I was like, okay, you guys think it was cool too, because I'm like, you guys have done so much, but like, they still think it's cool. And as far as like non-Chris Hayes Hoots, that the first time I saw Put Down the Ducky was insane. I didn't know. I thought it was the craziest thing ever. I was like, this is wild. And I was so enamored with how it is. It's so good. That's probably one of my favorite things I've seen, that whole Put Down the Ducky thing. I was like, that's great. And so I'm so glad I got to kind of recreate that when I took over the character. I was like, I hope someone has that feeling when they see my one, that original one, like, oh, wow. So those are my two favorite, but my Hoots moments. The original Put Down the Duckies. I still watch it and listen to it.
I have a VHS copy of the Put Down the Ducky TV special.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm just like, man, that was so good.
My favorite classic Hoots moments. There were a couple of episodes where it's nighttime on Sesame Street, and it's all just Hoots because he's an owl. Of course, owls are nocturnal. So there was one episode where I think it was like there were garbage trucks coming at night or something like that. And I do remember Hoots was playing his saxophone right when night struck, and everyone's like, it's a little too loud. We're trying to sleep. And he's like,
oh yeah,
okay,
how about a lullaby?
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
The other one I really love where it's nighttime on Sesame Street was where he's basically kind of like in the case of Murray in recent years with Sesame Street. Hoots was the host, and it was like he did a version of People in Your Neighborhood about people who have night jobs. Like there was a night watchman, a cop, a firefighter. He was talking about sounds at night, and Oscar's awake listening to it, and he sings a very, very nice little song about it. He interviews Bob, and much like in my case, takes questions from listeners about Sesame Street at night. And it was funny, the creative names they came up with: Owlissa, Owlexander, and Owlfred. And one of them asks, what do most people do at night? And Bob is zonked out because Bob was awake with Hoots. It's like, hey Bob, don't forget you're gonna be on my show. Oh yeah, that's right. What time? 4 a.m. Yeah, it's called Live at 4. Okay, well then I better get some sleep.
Yeah.
And you can tell Bob is just not ready for that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I go back and watch that. That rings a bell. Like, man, there's so much content with him because he was in a metric ton of episodes in those first couple years. You see him like the episode listings each season. I'm like, man, I'm hoping to get back to that. He's so fun to do, and I'm
Well,
starting to get in that rhythm. Like, this is fun.
well, I also loved him doing Sam Pottle's "Feels Good When You Sing a Song" with John Legend.
Oh yeah,
You got to perform that at the Lincoln Center.
Right, yeah. And I had watched that too. That was probably the last thing I've seen Kevin do with Hoots. And I was like, so I was trying to tune into that. That's the same, I think the puppet's the same puppet. And so yeah, that was great. And then knowing that I was doing that number, I was like, oh man, okay. And I watched that too to kind of prep and like see how he sang and the kind of inflections and the manipulation he did. I mean, yeah. I love the character. It's great.
Yeah, and it's so awesome that Kevin, when you met Kevin, he took the time to say you're doing a great job. Like that is so that is so
That's really cool.
Like I met him a couple of years ago. It was during COVID. He was doing virtual meet and greets and conventions. I saw that there was an opportunity to meet him. I never had. Years had gone by since let's just say what happened. I think that's the best way to describe it. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to meet him. I'm finally going to say hello to Kevin Clash, because a lot of people at Muppets that I had talked to even before then had said they love Kevin. He's a nice man. He gives opportunity to a lot of people. And I was like, well, you know what? You guys like him. That's good enough for me. So he shows up on the screen, and it was cold as hell that night. And I've got an Elmo blanket around me. I just randomly picked that up, and I'm like, this is perfect. And so yeah, Kevin logs in. And I was like, "Hi, Kevin. How's your day today?" He's like, "Oh, it's been great. I'm getting to talk to you guys." So, and he looks at me like an adult would when they're ready to chat with somebody. He's like, "So, what do you want to talk to me about?"
Yeah, that's great.
It was yeah. Cool. He told me a really good story about Jim Henson and Frank Oz as well.
Oh, that's fun.
Speaking of, today marks 34 years since we lost Jim.
Oh wow, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, the story that Kevin told me was that Kevin was always there with Jim and Frank, like because they were at the time were busy with their other projects. So when they were in town, Kevin was there, and they were having a meeting, a serious work meeting, and then out of nowhere, Jim's like, "Hey, Frank, amusement park just opened up down the street. You want to go with me?" Frank's like, "No, I don't want to go to an amusement park." And Jim's like, "No, come on, it'll be fun." And everybody in the meeting is focusing on them, and it's like, oh my god, they're doing Ernie and Bert, when really they were just being themselves.
That's great. Oh my goodness, I love those classic episodes, because a lot of them I watch and I'm like, it doesn't feel like there's a script, because it feels like they're just existing as these characters.
More often than not, I feel like it's scripted. I'm good friends with Billy Barkhurst. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I love Billy. Yeah.
Okay. And we were talking.
Billy.
Yeah, he came on this show, and it was actually just after I had met Kevin, and I said to him, I recently met Kevin, and then we started talking about Jim and Frank doing Bert and Ernie, and he said that among one of his favorites from Sesame Street is Bert and Ernie and the Snowman, where Ernie's like, "We can't just leave it here in the cold, Ernie. It's not alive." But it's just such a realistic looking snowman, and behind the scenes footage for that exists, and Billy saw it with Kevin as he was preparing to do Ernie, and Frank has this big most of his dialogue is crossed out.
That's great.
On the script, about half of his dialogue is crossed out.
Don't worry about it. I'm just gonna do it.
And in the behind the scenes footage, as they're rehearsing, it's like, wow, this is a really nice snowman, Bert. Yeah, this is the nicest styrofoam snowman I've ever seen. Ernie, what are you doing? I'm trying to get in the tight shot.
That's great.
Seriously, I do wish they aired that version.
Yeah, there's a lot. The blooper stuff has been really funny to see.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all I've got here. Is there anything you want to say to wrap up?
No, thanks for having me on, man. Yeah, every now and then I'm just like, I'll go talk about old stuff on the podcast. Sounds fun. Hopefully people keep on watching. I'll keep making interesting stuff if I can.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for joining me for Nostalgia Talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
And to all you listeners out there, there is a lot of stuff coming on the way really soon, but you guys know where to go for that. Facebook.com/Nostalgia Talk YouTube, Twitter.com/Nostalgia Talk YT. Both links are in the description. You can keep up with who's coming on and what's going to be happening, and I will see you next time. Peace out.